Floyd! Floyd! I'll knock you out! He's sick, look at him.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Ryan, when you're fresh off the seat, you bragged about deceiving the whole world. Why should the public believe you now when you deceived everyone in the lead
That's
up
a
to the
loaded
fight?
question, bro.
Loaded with facts. You were bragging about it on the Patrick Bet-David show, how you were faking a mental illness. So why should anybody believe you now?
Some things need to be taken serious. There was many things that I said on my lead up that were very serious.
Yeah, like when you said they took you out into the forest and fucked you in the ass. Were you serious about that?
Child sex trafficking, very serious.
Yes.
And I'm still passionate about it. I'm still working behind the scenes against it. So there's a time and place for everything. This is not something to play with, bro. They're trying to say I'm a cheater, bro. I've never cheated in my life. I don't even cheat in video games. This is what I'm saying. This is bullshit, bro. Do not believe the hype. They fucking trying to set me up.
Veteran boxing scribe Chris Mannix says, I don't blame Ryan Garcia for being angry. If I believed I was innocent, I would be too. Something smart he said in that DAZN interview, he's having experts look over all of his supplements to determine if anything could be tainted. That's an important step in the process.
Yeah, but that's assuming he is innocent.
You're saying that if you believed you were innocent, then you'd be angry too, but that's making an assumption about Ryan's innocence, isn't it?
You're assuming that he is. What if he isn't? And what if he knows he isn't, and he's acting now like he was acting before?
To make matters worse, per veteran boxing scribe Steve Kim, the follow-up IRMS test,
What's an IRMS test?
isotope ratio mass spectrometry test, for nandrolone, an anabolic steroid, for Ryan Garcia has been confirmed and came back positive. This is one of two substances, the other being Osterin, that he tested positive for recently in regards to his bout with Devin Haney.
Now he not only has to explain where the Osterin came from, he's got to explain where the nandrolone came from too. And as I stated in a previous video, Gaia Supplements is not going to take the fall for him. They've already covered their own asses.
With good reason, because if what you're doing is shifting culpability for this over to them, that makes them liable and perhaps subject to a lawsuit, not dissimilar from Dillian White's situation and his anti-doping fiasco, the recent one.
He said traces of the banned substance came from a supplement that he was taking, and now he's suing the manufacturer.
Sounds like the course of action Ryan is pursuing while his father simultaneously shifts the blame over to Victor Conti, over to VADA.
That's what Ryan's fans are doing too.
Highlighting Victor Conti's sketchy past, dealing performance-enhancing drugs to athletes many years ago, which is true.
But then which one is it? Are you saying Victor and VADA set him up, or are you saying it's cross-contamination from a supplement?
You're scrambling. It just looks like you're throwing shit at a wall, hoping something sticks. All the while, Devin Haney was asked if he felt anything suspicious in the Ryan Garcia fight before finding out about his positive drug test. I can't really say that. It was a tough fight, obviously. I'm a special kind of fighter, so I've never fought any guy that's been that much better than me. I've never been overmatched like that, and I've been in there with the best fighters in the world. I felt like something was up, but I didn't want to make excuses. Boxing is a brutal sport. I could have lost my life in that ring. When a guy is taking peds, it's dangerous. Now he's declared that he does not want a rematch with Ryan Garcia after all of this. Honestly, I'm not too interested in it. We've seen the guy cheat. We've seen the person that he is. I don't see myself ever getting back in that ring with him, but we never know. Boxing is just a sport. He put my life in jeopardy, so now it's deeper than boxing with me. I want to take this somewhere else now. He could have done some real dangerous things to me that night, and what most of Ryan Garcia's fans, and Gervonta Davis even,
In defense of Ryan,
all they can offer up as a retort, a rebuttal to these steroid allegations, is that Devin kept getting hit with the same punch all night. That all night, Ryan Garcia was able to land the left hook, which is true, but it doesn't take away from the fact that he just tested positive for 2 steroids. That, yeah, he was able to land that punch. And maybe that means that Devin Haney has a deficiency coming forward. He doesn't keep the right hand high enough when he's jabbing.
Okay.
We've known for a while now that Devin Haney is better hanging back and staying behind his jab than stepping into it.
so he got hit with a couple of left hooks. But how does that change that the guy throwing those left hooks was on steroids?
Doesn't.
That's a piss-poor explanation, if you even want to call it that, what seems to me to be a deflection tactic. You're trying to keep the focus on fight mechanics and fundamentals because you don't want to talk about the Osterin, you don't want to talk about the Nandrolone.
What, hand positioning matters the night of a fight, but steroids don't? Osterin, Nandrolone? We don't factor that into the equation. Just whether or not Devin Haney is keeping the right hand high enough. Veteran content creator here on YouTube, T-Street Controversy, made a stout observation that they're trying to shift the blame over to Victor Conti and VADA, so what are we supposed to do now? We're supposed to question VADA.
Oh, now VADA is the problem because Ryan Garcia says so. Notice how he's been spewing nonsense to his casual fans because he knows they don't know any better.
Shifting as much of the blame as he can in as many directions as he can. Going as far as tacking on political ideologies that he was shadowboxing for Donald Trump.
So the Democrats are the ones behind this.
My view. There could be that many more fighters, including Devin Haney, that are using banned substances clandestinely. However, we're not going to shift the focus over to that here and now because he's not the one who popped hot. Ryan is.
So if anybody has any questions that need answers, it's Ryan.
Focus on him.
What's up, fool? Like, I ain't mad at you, dog. You got your lick back. I was pulling on your beard. That's my fault, bro. This is my fault. Like, you got your leg back. It's cool. And I just want, just want to get out the way, dog. Boy, bro, I'm about to retire, bro.
No, don't retire. You can't do that. You can't. Listen, the journey. Hey, the journey ain't finished. Now,
it's just too much for me, bro. It's just too much for me. Like, it's just too much for me. I want to just take care of my kids and just, you know what I'm saying? I'm well off. I'm well off. I'm good. I'm straight. Ellie sit back. What's popping? Look, I'm good, bro. I'm straight, bro. Like this like that. It's like you gotta enjoy this shit. I'm not enjoying this shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I'm not enjoying this shit no more, bro. Like it's
You got to find that love for the game again.
yeah.
Man.
Like if you don't love this shit, then like it's not for you. It's just I'm debating on it.
So earlier this week, we talked about Caleb Plant's continued interest in facing Charlo, who he's been targeting for months, and I talked about how there's no point in that fight. There's no interest, there's no buzz, and Charlo seems all but a quasi-retired fighter. You can see it, you can hear it. Hell, he outright said it. He's contemplating retirement. So why waste time on him?
Caleb Plant has a lot more fire in the belly and a lot more desire than Jamal does at this time. And I can think of several fights, better fights for Caleb Plant than that one.
While some of those fights might require him to leave the island, PBC Island, several fighters already have. Isaac Cruz, Rayo Valenzuela, Tim Tszyu, Andy Ruiz, Deontay Wilder.
But if you have to go to the zone to fight, say, Edgar Berlanga, why not? Those guys they're fighting on the zone.
If we don't get the Canelo fight, then we gonna run it next. That's what you said, right? You know what I'm saying? That's what you said.
I promise you, shit.
No, besides promise, I'm saying that's what you said.
Knock you out, bro. I'm gonna knock you out.
No.
Take your glasses off. I'm gonna knock you out. I'm gonna knock you the fuck out.
No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not.
I'm gonna knock you out. I'm gonna knock you out, nigga. Take your glasses off, pussy.
For what?
So this is a fight that you want to have happen next?
We not fighting it. We worry about September, and after that, I'll knock this bitch out the child.
What'd you tell him?
I'd much rather see Plant versus Berlanga than Plant versus Charlo. And I'd much rather see Berlanga versus Plant than Berlanga versus Canelo.
Because some people think that if Canelo wins tomorrow, he's going to fight Edgar in September. I don't want to see that.
Canelo versus Berlanga is a 2-star fight. It's a foregone conclusion fight where you know how it ends before the opening bell sounds, whereas Berlanga versus Plant, that's a 3-star fight. That's a solid fight.
Why?
Because in spite of Caleb Plant still coming off that points decision loss to David Benavidez, he is in fact a more experienced fighter than Edgar Berlanga, a former champion who's been in there with better fighters than any fighter that Edgar has fought so far. So even if he is coming off a loss, he brings a lot more to the table than Edgar does at this time. And for Edgar, that would be a legitimate acid test, a proving ground.
That if you're better than people think you are, this is your chance to show it. And if you really are ready for a Canelo Alvarez, take care of this guy first.
It's a common opponent between yous. Not dissimilar from what we saw in Jaime Munguia and John Ryder and Canelo and John Ryder. John Ryder was a common opponent between them.
Jaime Munguia's performance in that fight is what added value to this weekend's fight. The fact that Jaime knocked John out where Canelo didn't. So
I think Edgar should have to do the same thing. Go in there with Caleb Plant, beat him, win in good fashion, and that might set you up for a Canelo Alvarez fight. Because right now, I don't think you deserve it.
no.
We saw what a little bit of movement from Marcelo Coceres about 2 years ago did to Edgar Berlanga's knockout streak.
It ended it.
Not only did Coceres end Edgar's knockout streak, he actually sat him down. He sat him on his ass. And Caleb Plant is a better caliber of fighter than Marcelo Coceres. So if you put Edgar in the ring with him, what's he gonna do?
It's intriguing.
Edgar may be a bit bigger and a bit younger, perhaps a stronger puncher than Caleb Plant, but Caleb does have enough defensive prowess that he might be able to take Edgar's power away.
The other side of the coin.
Edgar is bigger, he is younger, seemingly stronger, and he showed slight improvements in his last fights. Will he show enough improvement in this one that he can beat a former champion? I would much rather see this in September, and I think Caleb should go for it, because I'm not even sure the PBC can accommodate him at this time.
So many of their fighters have already left, and the ones remaining have been outsourced.
A cluster of them are fighting in that August show, Crawford versus Madrimov, set to go down on DAZN. So why can't Caleb migrate over to DAZN? Let Eddie Hearn make him an offer that's worth his while.
Caleb wants it. He wants to fight in September. It's Edgar. You have to wonder if Edgar wants to run it.
And just in keeping with all things super middleweight as it pertains to this weekend's big fight, big main event between Mexican nationals Canelo Alvarez, the champion, and Jaime Munguia, the challenger. A last look at what is this fight. 4-star fight.
4 stars.
Falling under the great fucking fight category because of the aesthetic this fight may yield. That Canelo Alvarez is a very talented counterpuncher, able to catch and shoot effectively out of the high guard, landing big shots, big punches, whereas Jaime is a volume puncher, a combination puncher, statuesque, and aggressive, the kind of fighter that goes for the knockout.
Though still fundamentally flawed.
Comparatively, a much greener fighter than Canelo.
Even though he's a veteran of 43 professional bouts, and he actually did used to reign as a champion way back down there at 154, compared to Canelo, Jaime is green.
How we got here. The John Ryder fight. John Ryder, common opponent between Canelo and Jaime, where Canelo beat him in one-sided fashion and won a points decision. Jaime swooped in and stopped him afterwards. He knocked him out. John Ryder.
He hadn't been knocked out in a long time.
And Canelo couldn't knock him out. So those were very good optics for Jaime Munguia to help build this fight. But the reality of it is, the beating that Canelo put on John tenderized him for Jaime. That's why Jaime was able to swoop in afterwards and knock him out where Canelo didn't, because of all the damage he sustained in the Canelo fight.
That's what I think.
I knew that's the effect that a knockout would have for Jaime, that would lend itself to a potential Canelo fight.
But it doesn't actually convince me that Jaime wins this weekend.
Good optics, but I'm not sold. No, I still think Jaime punches wide. A bit too wide for a sharp counterpuncher like Canelo Alvarez, and he opens up a bit too much. That stylistically,
This style plays into Canelo's hands because he doesn't have to find him.
5 out of the last 6 guys that Canelo Alvarez fought were boxers. Boxers who box and punch, stay on their toes, move around, use the jab, and try to create space between themselves and Canelo. That 5 out of the last 6 guys Canelo Alvarez fought were movers.
Moving is what kept some of them in the fight. Moving is how one of them helped him win the fight.
You're talking about Callum Smith, Caleb Plant, Billy Joe Saunders, Dimitri Bivol, Jermall Charlo. The only reason Jermall Charlo heard the final bell, the only reason he survived was because he kept moving away from Canelo. He didn't want to engage him in the pocket, be subject to his power. Movement.
Moving away.
Whereas Jaime doesn't move away. Jaime comes forward. He steps into his jab to bring other punches over, explodes, throwing 3 and 4 punch combinations.
Right.
That even though Canelo is noticeably shorter, stumpier, speedier than Jaime Munguia, it's not going to be a problem because Jaime's not the kind of guy that creates space. He's not the kind of guy you have to chase.
So he'll get all the countering opportunities he needs. The intrigue.
The question is, here and now, at 33 or 34 years old, having been a professional boxer since age 15, with over 60 fights in his resume, is he still sharp enough? Is he still fast enough to punch him in between?
The counter is.
Been a lot of talk about Canelo Alvarez potentially being on the slide, potentially being in decline, that the guy's been around a long time, fought in a lot of high-level fights, and Father Time has a bad habit of making house calls unexpectedly, that almost overnight he can catch up to you. Will he catch up to Canelo?
Some people think he will.
But I don't. I'm not convinced. In Canelo Alvarez's last fight, he didn't look like a guy who was on the slide to me. His energy levels held up, his cardio, his power was still there, his speed. Granted that he didn't knock the guy out, he didn't knock Charlo out, but that's because Charlo wasn't fighting. He was surviving. He spent all 36 minutes moving away from Canelo.
Jaime's gonna move towards him.
And put himself within striking distance of Canelo Alvarez's power shots that much sooner.
Allow Canelo Alvarez to pile on the damage that much sooner. Jaime Munguia is a busier, more prolific puncher within a round than Canelo.
Jaime will throw a 3 or 4, 5 punch combination, whereas Canelo is more reserved, focusing on accuracy.
Counters.
Loading up the shots when he does it to amplify damage, optimize power. So I see a situation where Canelo will be able to catch Jaime in between.
Hurt him.
People tend to forget that Jaime's been hurt before. He was overwhelmed by Hennis Dogan down there at 154. In more recent years, I saw him hurt at least 2 times by Sergey Didivianchenko, and God bless him, Sergey is no Canelo Alvarez.
So I figure, if Sergey can hurt you, Canelo can hurt you.
Moreover, now he wants to, not because of any bad blood he has with Jaime, but because he wants to stick it to Oscar De La Hoya, who's spent the last 2 or 3 days poking the bear, trying to ruffle Canelo Alvarez's feathers. And I don't know what he's doing, because that doesn't better his fighters' chances.
No.
Some fighters, if you mess with them,
It throws them off.
if you make them mad, if you aggravate them and render them emotionally compromised, it affects the way they fight. Some fighters, other fighters, if you make them mad, that makes them fight better.
Harder!
Do you remember that Caleb Plant? He ruffled Canelo Alvarez's feathers ahead of their fight. And how did Canelo respond? He knocked him out. Billy Joe Saunders tried to ruffle his feathers too. You saw what happened there. He broke his eye.
I figure, even though Canelo Alvarez doesn't have a bone to pick with Jaime, not Jaime per se, he does have a bone to pick with his promoter.
Things have been mostly cordial in the build-up up until 2 or 3 days ago, so now I think he wants to send Oscar a message, and I think he wants to stop Jaime. He wants to stop this guy. I think he's going to.
Body shot.
I think it's going to be a body shot that does Jaime Munguia in, who up until now has never been stopped, but there's a first time for everything.
And that's a big target.
When he's letting those big punches go, he's open to be countered, and he's open to be countered to the body.
So I'm gonna go with Canelo Alvarez by way of a 9th round knockout by way of a body shot. We'll see what happens.